Thank you for staying with us. According to recent statistics from the Federal Mortgage Bank, Nigeria is plagued with a deficit of 28 million housing units. This means that 28 million people or more are homeless, with a growing urban population, increasing construction costs, and declining household income. Access to affordable housing is becoming more difficult. Efforts by the government to bridge the gap and provide houses for its people have not been far-reaching. This is why a private company has decided to step in. Gtext Holding is a real estate company passionate about providing affordable houses for Nigerians. And the managing director of Gtext Holding, Dr. Stephen Akintayo, joins us now via Zoom to talk about this. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Now, in the first place, why are you so passionate about housing in Nigeria, especially seeing how unpredictable the real estate sector has become?
Well, for me, it started with my childhood. I was born in Maiduguri, and in fact, my education was affected because we kept moving from one house to the other because the landlord kept increasing prices of the houses, and we had to move to a particular, I can call it a village because there was no running water, there was no electricity, and that was how I grew up. And of course, growing up, I've always had the passion that if God bless me, I want to be in a position to be able to build decent housing for people, because I didn't have it. I never saw a toilet that you can flush until I was 13. Literally, myself and my sibling were jumping when we saw it for the first time. That's the upbringing I had. So for me, it's something very passionate, and I hope it changed Nigeria. I hope we're able to do our vision and our goals.
Right, interesting, because that's the situation a majority of Nigerians have found themselves having to move from house to house. And the increase, that's what we're witnessing now. But then some of your offerings seem almost too good to be true. And with the way inflation is going, how sure are you that you can deliver?
Well, it's relative. Some people will probably even tell you that it's too expensive. So what we've done is to peg
What's wrong with you?
The offering to $1. To avoid situation where we're affected by inflation or the fall in naira and things like that, because most of the building materials we use are imported. We were partnering with North, the largest building material manufacturer in the world. It's a German company. And so for us, we had to peg it. And for us, we realized that once we peg it, we can be consistent. What always leads to maybe the prices being way higher is because you're also targeting that maybe the fall of naira to dollar will hit a particular amount, so you are trying to be proactive about that. But once you peg it to $1, you're just more consistent with your price points and your pricing compared to if you put it in a naira. Of course, people can pay us the naira equivalent, but we just peg that let's assume this one bedroom is going for $50,000. And you know that if it takes you 3 years to pay, you only pay $50,000, whatever the equivalent will now be in naira.
Right. Now, what is the major problem you foresee in the housing sector in Nigeria? I mean, over 28 million persons are said not to, is the deficit rather that we have with regards to housing in Nigeria. What do you think is the major challenge why we have this huge gap?
It's affordability and flexibility in payment. Nigeria is still one of the few countries in the world with that volume of population where you have to pay outright for a house or for a land. It's just ridiculous. And we're also the only country that is not building housing unit at the volume we need of the growth of our population. For example, Egypt currently is doing 30 million housing units. 30 million, right? When you put together all the states in Nigeria, federal government housing project, state government housing project, is not even up to 100,000. And when you compare our population growth, is ridiculous. In fact, by the year 2050, Nigeria is going to be over 350 million in terms of population growth. By the year 2100, Lagos will be the largest city in the world, the entire world, according to Washington Post research. So all this is telling us that we even have a bigger crisis in our hands in terms of housing, in terms of people being able to have quality shelter. And even in our own part, our vision 2035 is just 25,000 housing units. We hope we can get funding to even be able to do way more, because this private sector, there's a limit to how affordable the private sector can go. And you remember, funding is also an issue. Many of us in the private sector, at least we, avoid taking loan because we've seen how our colleagues who decided to take loan when the economy wasn't stable, banks took over their business and totally. So you have a whole lot of issues here. I hope that the CBN can come up with a program that is able to allow people who can have up to 30% of the money directly. You don't need to go through any third party. I know it's difficult because sometimes even when CBN claim it has partnered with commercial banks, the money doesn't get to the everyday Nigerian, or partner with the mortgage bank, because of the number of people who are trying to get this thing. So it gets, complicated along the line. So it's a serious issue. We are doing our best to see how we can help, but this is serious.
But the government has come up with a national housing scheme where workers commit a part of their monies to perhaps something they can build later on. I think about it, it depends on the age, and you commit a certain percentage of your monies to the government. Isn't that something workable? Isn't that something remarkable by the government?
It is, but you see, the funding the government has to promote programs like this versus those who need it, the volume of people who need it. That's the problem. All over the world, when you do planning, you are even planning ahead of the years. You are proactive. So I'm joining you from Dubai. The road here in Dubai is done ahead of time. In other words, they look at the number of cars plowing a particular road. Before you begin to have heavy issues, they know that they need to add another extra lane. They look at a particular road, they know they need to do an overhead ahead of time. Now we are way, way behind. And the policies and the programs are not even meeting up to the volume, talk less of others that are coming. So there are different numbers. Some people will say 20 million deficit, some will say 26, some will say 15. Whatever that number is, there is still no project or program right now in Nigeria that is providing housing at the rate of 1 million houses per year or 1 million houses in 5 years. There's none. If you add all we are all doing, and that's why sometimes when people say, why do you invest? I do a lot of teaching and mentoring, even encouraging more people to come into the real estate sector. And people say, are you not scared of competition? I say, no, because we have a real big time issue here. No one company can solve the housing problem in Nigeria because of the volume of deficit that we have. So yes, government is coming up with 1 or 2 programs, but it's not meeting up with the volume. You already have millions in deficits, right? So you first need to meet that, and you are even supposed to build way ahead of that number.
Right. Now, with the rate at which the real estate sector is booming in Nigeria, many believe it may crash soon. What are your thoughts on that?
So the real estate can't crash. I mean, there was a time I think the EFCC chairman was saying that real estate always crash in different parts of the world. Nigeria is the only country that you don't have such, and obviously that's because he's not an expert in real estate. The challenge here is the deficit. You can only have a crash when you have what we call hyper supply, right? When you have an hyper supply, at some point, if people don't have enough money, you're going to have, a lot of people just having to sell their houses and things like that. But we don't even have enough, talk less of hyper supply. What you have, and that is already happening right now, is a slow in the sector. And there's already a slowdown in the sector in terms of how many people are buying land, how many people are buying houses. You already have that happening right now. We're not getting enough patronage like we used to get in previous years. Of course, inflation is part of it. Recession is part of it. People are losing their jobs. Those in diaspora, already everybody's getting careful. You know what's happening in the UK, what's happening in the US as well, because Nigerian diaspora have played a critical role in the growth of the real estate sector. They are, the largest investor in the real estate sector in Nigeria. But of course, they are also having economic issues, in the various countries where they are. So there's already a slowdown in the purchase of properties in Nigeria by, the regular Nigerians in diaspora or even Nigerians in Nigeria at the moment. But you can't have what we call a crash because you don't have, a housing, you have a huge housing deficit. The only places you can have such is maybe certain highbrow places in Abuja, Metama, Sokoro, where politicians, buy properties and they don't even want to rent it out in the first place. So you can see empty houses there. It's just a way to keep their stolen wealth and stuff like that. But in reality, in the real economics of things, you can't yet have what we call a crash in Nigeria until we meet the gap, the housing gap that we have.
Now, you mentioned something earlier about hyper supply. Do you think Nigeria can ever get to that point?
We can, but that would be, at least 10 years of the right government policy, the right incentive to attract a lot more, the right incentive to convince, Nigerians in diaspora why they should invest back at home, the right, years of being positive with our words. But sometimes, our politicians and people in government have by themselves demarcated the real estate sector in Nigeria with their words. Unknowingly, many of them are ignorant of what they're doing, but that's what they've done. And it's also because we don't look at the entire value chain. We don't understand that the largest employer of labor right now is real estate manufacturing. And so when you hit that sector with your words, a lot of those in diaspora are scared to invest back at home. Now more people will lose jobs. Now you're affecting the entire, and you're creating crime. It's all just goes hand in hand. So we hope that those in government begin to learn to use their words wisely, use the right statements, be positive with their words. Even now that we have election coming, we hope politicians will use the right words and, so that they encourage investors, because you can't keep live in a glass house and keep throwing stones. You keep saying bad things about the country and even about a sector, If you have certain people in the sector doing money laundering and things like that, go after them. But you don't just come out and make certain statements, right? Because you just affect the entire industry.
Now, green and smart housing is still somewhat surreal in Nigeria. Do you believe Nigerians are ready for this?
Well, the future is here, whether we're ready for it or not. The future is the future. I just left Sharm El Sheikh, which is the venue for COP27, the UN climate change event. And, we could see the various deliberations, the various conversations, the effect of climate change and why we have to get to zero carbon emission. And as much as we haven't done much to affect that in Africa, we cannot always be behind. Because ultimately, our own growth process is very slow. So the same way we did with the telecoms, we're able to adopt the innovation in the telecom sector, and that gave us an edge. The same thing with ICT. We have a lot of our people doing programming in the tech industry. We want to do the same with climate change. We need to be ahead. We need to begin to build houses for the future. And because we don't even have enough coping mechanism when climate change affects us. Look at what's happening with the flooding. You have people who still can't go to their houses in Bayelsa or in Kogi, months after the flooding. Now you have hurricane in Florida. In literally matter of weeks, many of the people affected have gone back. So the bounce back, as mechanism in developed world, when they are affected by climate change, we don't have such structure. So we can't even afford, right, to abuse the climate to a point where we're having heavy effects of climate change. We need to even begin to take actions to prevent what's happening. The flooding that happened in Nigeria is very preventable if you can have good drainage system. Very, very preventable. If you can have enough dams in different places that is required so that we can regulate the water flow. So I keep telling people that what we call, climate crisis in Nigeria, at least I can speak for Nigeria, are preventable if we do the right things. And I hope we do. I hope we evolve. But for us, as a company, we're a market leader. We're building 25,000 green and smart homes. We're recycling in all our estates, all the waste. We're, turning the waste to biogas for cooking and to generate electricity. We're leveraging on solar and wind energy, and that's what we're doing. Of course, we need a lot of money to do that. Our projection is showing that if we're going to achieve that vision 2035 that we have set up, we'll be needing up to $20 billion in the next 13 years if we're going to be able to achieve that. But we hope we will attract investors as we go on. My principle has always been start small, think big, and grow fast. So for us, we're starting with 1,000 housing units, and we hope we attract investment and we're able to achieve it.
Now, speaking about the Vision 2035, let's even delve into that. With your continuous expansion into other countries and continents, do you think that you still have a Nigerian or African face at the time?
Absolutely. So for us, that's even good because a lot of those who will help us achieve our vision in Nigeria will have to be foreign investors, and it's more of a track record here in Dubai, in the UK, in the US that will convince them that what we're trying to do in Nigeria is doable and that they have the right partners to work with. So for us, is that our international expansion, it's even increasing our credibility internationally and increasing the trust level of investors to say, hey, these guys already have things they're doing here. So if anything even go wrong, I can just come to their office here in Dubai or in the UK or in the US and hold them accountable for whatever it is that we've agreed to do, compared to if they're just a Nigerian company that I'll have to go to Nigeria to go and check what's going on, or be able to have somebody explain to me what has happened to my investment. So for us, we think our international expansion is an added advantage, and we've seen that happen in recent time. Also is that source of capital, you don't really need your own capital as much, internationally. I mean, real estate is one of those sectors internationally that you can really, really leverage, right? So you can easily access funds in the banks in the US, in the UK. You can, in matter of 12 to 16 months, pull out every single cash you initially put into any real estate investment and still have that asset in this part of the world. But you don't have that in Nigeria. So for us, we're excited about international expansion, and we don't think it will affect us in any way.
Before we go into the promotion that Gtext is running as we speak, there are those who think that your housing solution are just for the rich and that perhaps it's not as affordable for everyone. What do you say to them?
I agree with them, and I wanted to assure them that that is a global trend. Uh, Houses are not affordable globally. What they have had to do to make it affordable is what we call accessibility. So, for example, the UK realized that a lot of young people are not able to, buy houses, cost of living crisis and so on, and they came up with first-time buyers. What was the model? Instead, normally you need 20% of the money to buy a house in London and some other areas in the UK, most areas anyway. So what they realized that people couldn't even raise the initial 20% before they then get the lender to drop the remaining 80%. So the government decided to come up with a scheme that if you're buying your house for the first time, just drop 10%. The government will drop another 10%, right? And the lender will give you the remaining 80%. And that has allowed more people to be able to afford real estate in the UK. And that's the model everybody is doing all over the world. When you look at a 3-bedroom, a 5-bedroom in, let's say, Dallas, Texas, which is where we operate in the US as well, the price point is minimum, okay, 50% higher than the same 3-bedroom in Nigeria. Okay, so the issue is not even as if it's that expensive. The problem is that we've not created a vehicle for it to be accessible where I can pay in 30 years. I can pay, in Nigeria now, most property you have to just pay at once. You have to raise all the money at once. And that's part of one of the things we keep saying that is fueling corruption because government has to create, that's why government exists, create a system where even the poor can access what the rich can access. Okay, maybe they will just need to then pay over a period of time. And this is why we then decided to come up with a new program now that allows people to pay 3 to 5 years for houses they are buying from us. So they're able to pay gradually. Every month they are paying just 4% of the total value of the house. I have enough time to build. So we're not rushing to do construction. We're also able to build in bulk, and that also reduces the price of the housing itself. And this new program obviously has made it more accessible for more people to be able to afford our own housing project. And we hope that we'll get more partners to even do maybe even for a longer year.
Okay, so just quickly walk us through the nitty-gritty of this promotion that Gtext is running at this time.
So it's a 1,000 housing unit promo out of the 25,000 we have in the next 13 years. And the goal is that you have a whole 3 years to pay. You first pay either 5 million if you're buying from 1-bedroom to 3-bedroom, or you pay 10 million deposit if you're doing 4 to 5. And then you have another 3 years to pay the rest, 4% every month. And gradually you're able to pay. In fact, when you pay up to 30% and you are struggling to balance up, we can link you up with a mortgage firm that then can even take up that project from you and give you another 15 years to pay. So that has made it a lot more accessible. So this way, even average Nigerians who are disciplined enough to have saved enough can now access a green and a smart home. And because of the kind of houses we're building, the ROI is going to be way higher because you don't have enough green and smart home. The demand is going to be going higher over time. And we have 8 different locations. So for people to be able to take advantage of, we have Abuja, we have 5 locations in Lagos, Ibejuleki, Ogudu, Isheri, Ikorodu. We have in Asaba, we have location Abeokuta. So we've given multiple locations, and then investors can pick, okay, I want this location, I'm tying down this. I have 3 years to do that. For us, we moved to site in March of 2023, and those who pay outright, by the first quarter of 2024, they can even get their own housing unit. But those who are paying installment, after they complete their payment, they get the keys to their house.
Right. Now, how do investors connect with Gtext Homes?
Very easy. They can always contact 0700 Gtext Homes or email info@gtexthomes.com. We have offices, I think about 7 office locations in Nigeria at the moment. So they can just Google our name, GTXT Homes, and visit any of our offices. And we have our team available to reach out and attend to them. We run a 24/7 customer service, so you can call us 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Once you reach out to 0700 Gtext Homes. Someone will reach out to you.
When exactly does the promotion kick off, and how do people access it?
So it started already, but we're doing a virtual launch on Saturday, 10th of December. And you can always visit www.gtexthomes.com/1000 units to sign up if you want to. So at that webinar, we're going to be having all our technical partners to explain to you the entire project, gives you, detailed explanation, show you the payment plan, and we might give some discount as well during that webinar. So it's a virtual launch webinar holding on Saturday, 10th of December. I think the time should be 5 p.m. in the evening, Nigerian time, where, of course, we are expecting participants from all over the world, UK, US, because, again, most of our clients are even diaspora. So you can check your own local time, www.gtexthomes.com/1000 units, and you can sign up and you get a lot more information how to go about it and how to be part of this amazing offer.
Amazing indeed. Now, there are some issues I'd like for you to quickly address with regards to housing in Nigeria before we let you go. And those two issues are the issues of omonile, as they are often referred to. And then there's also the issue of developers, because in recent times we've had a situation of a building collapse and all of that, and a lot of persons are scared with regards to some of the delving into real estate because they do not understand the products that were used for those buildings and all of it. How do you allay the fears of Nigerians who are looking to perhaps buy or tap into this, talking about the real estate, and how perhaps they can go about maneuvering all of these challenges to get the best out of it?
Beautiful question. So for us, is number one, the omonile issue is something that really has come to stay as a result of poverty or unemployment. What we often do in many of the locations we operate is to see the best, how some of them who are qualified to give them jobs, and engage very well with the locals in that location to make sure that we all have good terms. And we've always had a good relationship everywhere we buy properties. However, to resolve that issue in the long term, government has to step in. Poverty has to be eradicated one way or the other. However, the good news is for investors is also buy from credible real estate companies. They are not new. These are 7th year in real estate development. Buy from companies that have track record. They've been here, they know what they're doing. If you directly go and buy properties right now in Nigeria, you will find the issue of omonile. They probably will sell to 5 people. It's just the truth. So why not deal with corporate organizations who have been able to organize themselves? They've put together a proper structure, right, that protects your investment. And now, as to the issue of building collapse, this is the reason why we had to peg any housing to dollar, because we're working with North, is a German company, and other partners we're working with. So most of the building materials we're using are imported. And again, it's unfortunate that we are having to do that. The reason for us is because we have an international reputation to protect. Many of the blocks that is being manufactured in Nigeria, you just try to break them, it's just falling into pieces. So unfortunately, you can't always rely on locally manufactured building materials many times. You can't always rely. Some of them are already compromised because everybody's trying to save cost, everybody's trying to, reduce cost. And that is part of the problem why cost of building is also expensive because nothing of value is cheap. So for us, our solution is to say, first of all, we want to use quality building materials. If we're going to use local, it must be that we're dealing with a corporate organization that has built credibility over the years for manufacturing quality building materials. Else, we just import. And that's also why we're pegging our prices in dollars so that because we're also buying dollar, so we don't have an issue of, oh, this was the price we initially agreed. Oh, we're so sorry, you have to pay more. Okay. And then the client comes back and say, no, 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 they are scammers, they are thieves. But that's not our fault. If naira fall to $1, okay, and now we have to pay more to be able to deliver the house that you have asked us to build for you. These are realities, and this is why you see businesses are shutting down, businesses are downsizing. The realities on ground is that it's really, really tough doing business in Nigeria. Very, very tough.
All right, we'll have to leave the conversation here now, but we must thank you, Managing Director of Gtext Holdings, Dr. Stephen Akintayo, for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right.